Good Yontif, everyone. Gamar Tov. I hope if you're fasting, it's the beginning of a meaningful one. That night, atop a glacier, writes Blair Braverman, the second Jewish woman to ever complete the 1,000-mile Iditarod, the historic 1,000-mile journey by sled dog race through the wilderness of Alaska. That night, atop a glacier, she writes in her book, Welcome to the Goddamn Ice Cube, Chasing Fear and Finding Home in the Great White North. She writes, we made an unusual camp, a cluster of tents, with the dogs staked in a ring around us. The dogs were not in a circle so they could fight off a bear. They were in a circle so that the bear, when it reached us, would already have a full stomach. As that scene illustrates, Blair Braverman, now in her early 30s, knows what it's like to spend weeks and months alone, aside from, as she calls them, her proud Jewish sled dogs in the wilderness. She knows what it is to be alone, and also to not know precisely when that test of one's endurance, one's own ability to find reserves of inner strength and resilience, when that test will end. In that sense, she is not so different from us, who have been on a long endurance test of our own these past many months. This long pandemic slog has taken and will continue to take, we fear, quite some unknown amount of time. And it is a test of compassionate endurance for ourselves and for each other. On Rosh Hashanah last week, I spoke of the past and of our hopeful and hoped-for future as a community. Now, let us say, I want to focus on our present. The Kol Nidre prayer tonight reminds us of our own humility in acknowledging already today, as we try to change, that some realities are beyond our control to change. So in some sense, there is only now. Or as a favorite Jewish meditation teacher of mine likes to teach, now is like this. Now is like this. Over our Elul gatherings, in the month preceding this moment of reflection and repentance, some of us were able to gather to try to cultivate this compassionate endurance, to look with kind eyes inward at ourselves and at those around us, to listen with kindness to the sound of the shofar, to the call we just heard in the liturgy, Shema Kolenu, for God to listen to us, for us to listen to one another. Mary Carr, the poet, has a poem called simply, The Voice of God. In it, she writes, 90% of what's wrong with you could be cured with a hot bath, says God from the bowels of the subway. But we want magic to win the lottery we never bought a ticket for. Tenderly, the monks chant, embrace the suffering. The voice of God does not pander, offers no 5-year plan, no long-term solution, nary an edict. It is small and fond and local Don't look for your initials in the geese honking overhead, or to see through the glass even darkly. It says the most obvious crap. Put down that gun. You need a sandwich. Going through a pandemic or a life difficulty of any sort, or being out alone on the ice with a dog sled team in the wilderness. It turns out all of these instances call for the same compassionate endurance. Blair Braverman writes of this similarity. What this means for us as people is that we can't just plan to take care of ourselves later. We shouldn't expect to catch up on sleep when we really crash, or to reach out to loved ones after we're struck by loneliness. We should ask for support before we need it. We should support others before they ask. Because if you don't know how far you're going, you need to act like you're going forever. Planning for forever is essentially impossible, which can actually be freeing. It brings you back into the present. Now is like this. How long will this pandemic last? Right now, that's irrelevant. What matters is after the fast, eating a nourishing meal, telling someone you love them, walking your dog, getting enough sleep. What matters is that, to the degree that you can, you make your own life sustainable every day. My wish for us on this Kol Nidre is that we create that sort of daily compassion. Gemar Tov and Chatima Tova and Good Yontif.